Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Creepypastas video. I know I haven't done one in forever, but, well, I feel the need to put a new one up. Now, today I am reading the Lavender Town Syndrome Creepypasta, also known as the Missing Frequencies. Now, this is just some quick notes about it before actually getting to everything else with the creepypasta. The Lavender Town Syndrome, also known as Lavender Town Tone or Lavender Town Suicides, was a peak in suicides and illnesses of children between the ages of 7 to 12, shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan back in February 1996. Don't know why they have the date there. Rumors say that these suicides and illnesses only occurred after the children playing the game reached Lavender Town, whose theme music had extremely high frequencies that studies showed that only children and young teens can hear, since their ears are more sensible. Due to the Lavender Town tone, at least 200 children supposedly committed suicides, and many more developed illnesses and afflictions. The children who committed suicide usually did so by hanging or jumping from heights. Those who did not acted irrationally, complained of severe headaches after listening to Lavender Town's theme. Punctuation is poor on this. Although Lavender Town now sounds differently depending on the game, this mass hysteria was caused by the first Pokemon game released. After the Lavender Town incident, the programmers had fixed Lavender Town's theme music to be at a lower frequency, and since children were no longer affected by it. One video appeared in 2010 using special software to analyze the audio of Lavender Town's music. When played, the software created images of the unknown near the end of the audio. This raised a controversy, since the unknown didn't appear until the Generation 2 games, Silver, Gold, and Crystal. The unknown translate to "Leave now." There is also the said beta version of Lavender Town. So, that's the little bit of background. Now let's get to the actual creepypasta. The phenomenon of the Lavender Town tone is a legend that involves a bizarre spate of medical cases and deaths from around the country that have been connected to the Pocket Monsters Pokemon game series, in particular the first two games of the series, Red and Green. Though the event is largely unheard of due to disclosure laws for companies based in the Kyoto prefecture, there is a large amount of information that has been brought into the open by a number of dedicated individuals, including Seki Uchitada, Issei Mitsutomo, and Satao Haru, to whom this page is dedicated. Thanks also to Andao Kagetada for providing images and animated GIFs of the visual phenomena. This analysis will discuss the other phenomena that is often confused with Lavender Town tone, known as White Hand Sprite, Ghost Animation, and Buried Alive model. So, bit of background on that. The first cases of Lavender Town tone and associated events were reported a few months after the release of Pocket Monsters Red and Green for the handheld Game Boy video game console. These video games were wildly popular with children between the ages of 7 and 12, their core demographic, which was no doubt one of the reasons why the Lavender Town tone had the level of severity that it did. In the game, the player takes on the role of a trainer, whose task is to capture, tame, and train wild creatures called Pocket Monsters for battle. These games, and the two newest additions to the series, Pocket Monsters Gold and Silver, an anime, manga, figures, a collectible card game, and home console games have resulted in Pocket Monsters becoming a multi-billion-dollar franchise. In one part of the game, the trainer comes to a small, out-of-the-way place called Lavender Town. This town is one of the smallest hamlets in the game, aside from the trainer's own hometown, and possesses very few of the services available to the trainer in every other city in the game. Indeed, the location would be unremarkable if it were not for the Pokemon Tower located there, a colossal building that holds the graves of hundreds of deceased Pokemon. It is theorized that because of this location in the game, at least 200 children lost their lives, and many more developed sudden illnesses and afflictions, and this does not consider the vast waves of unreported illnesses or deaths whose cause went unnoticed. It was not until the spring or summer of 1996 that the cases that would eventually become linked to the Lavender Town tone began to surface. The earliest record of the acknowledgement of the effects of the Lavender Town tone that the author could find came from an internal report made in June 1996 by the company Game Freak Inc., which was then leaked by one of its former employees, Miss Sato Haru. In it, an employee gives a list of names, dates, and symptoms, records of children between the ages of 7 and 12 who had suffered various medical problems as a result of playing Pocket Monsters Red and Green versions. Some records are listed below, with the full listing in Appendix A. It should be noted that the entries in the appendix also include symptoms born not from the Lavender Town tone, an audio phenomenon, but from the so-called White Hand Sprite ghost animation and Buried Alive model, all of which were visual phenomena that provoked similar but distinct symptoms. I can't read Japanese, so and so, April 12th, 1996, age 11. Obstructive sleep apnea, severe migraines, atoralgia, I can't pronounce that word. That's a first. Tinnitus. Such and so. May 23rd, 1996. Age 12. General irritability, insomnia, addiction to video game, nosebleeds. Developed into violent streaks against others and eventually himself. Something. Somewhat so and so. April 27th, 1996. Age 11. Cluster headaches, irritability, eventually took mixed painkillers. I would assume that's actually supposed to say deceased. And such and much and so. Migraines, sluggish, March 4th, 1996. Age 7. Migraines, sluggish and slow behavior, unresponsiveness. Developed into deafness and went missing. Body discovered beside the road, April 20th, 1996. No idea, because that one's different. The document that was circulated internally was the first time that these incidents had been connected with the Pocket Monsters video games. Until then, the cause had not been discovered or diagnosed by medical professionals. Indeed, it is uncertain how the company themselves managed to find the cases related to the event without seeking advice from health services. The predominant symptoms related to what would become known as Lavender Town tone included headaches and migraines, bleeding from eyes and ears, mood swings and irritability, addiction to the game, unprovoked violence, withdrawal, and unresponsiveness, and in approximately 67% of the cases, suicidal tendencies. However, these symptoms only manifested in children between the ages of 7 and 12 years old who had reached the area in the game known as Lavender Town. most of whom were revealed to have been wearing headphones or earphones while playing the game. As it turns out, the developers of the Lavender Town area had sought to make an area that would leave an impression on the player, according to Seki Uchitada, who was a member of the development team. Seki claimed that at the time of development, a number of the team were interested in making Lavender Town a little different to the rest of the game. The Pokemon Tower is a visible result of that, Seki told Games Dimensions magazine. In an interview earlier this year, that and the fact that Lavender Town is so different from all the other cities in the game, it is smaller, it has fewer people occupying it, it didn't have a gym, and, of course, the music was very, very eerie. In fact, in the first version of the game, we were told to slightly change a song played in the background of Lavender Town, because our manager told us it would make children upset. The music used in subsequent versions is different. Either Seki was unaware of the full impact of Lavender Town, or was vastly understated how upset children would get. No more is said of the music in the article, but there are mentions of Lavender Town's other macabre features. What Seki failed to disclose to Games Dimensions magazine was that the music used in the first wave release of Pocket Monsters Red and Green was formulated out of an experiment in binaural beats. Using slightly different frequencies of sound, each frequency played in one ear, through earphones or headphones, various psychological effects can be induced upon the listener. In most versions of the first wave releases, this resulted in the player feeling uneasy, apprehensive, and mildly disturbed. However, for upwards of 200 children, it provoked a variety of disturbances in the brain that went undetected, purely because it was undetectable by fully developed human ears. Instead, only children fell victim to the tones, resulting in psychological and physiological problems that in some cases led to death, many of which were suicides. These visual effects are known among programming circles as the white hand sprite, the ghost animation, and the buried alive model. Each has been found to cause headaches, nausea, and in severe cases, hemorrhaging of the brain and lungs. While around 70% of Lavender Town syndrome is due to the lavender tone, the remaining percentage is split among these visual phenomena. This is partly due to the small visual stimuli occurring after the player is introduced to Lavender Town. It has been theorized that those unaffected by the aural stimulation, such as the deaf or the hard of hearing, make up the remaining 30%. While viewing these models can cause these effects, there are certain methods that allow a viewer to safely examine them in detail. For example, looking at them through this, apparently. The white hand sprite, known in the coding as withhand.gif, this was scripted to appear as a Pokemon on the third floor of the Lavender Tower. It is divided into 4 separate animations: an introduction, the cry, a Pokemon unleashes before a battle, an idle, and 2 attacks. These attacks are unknown, as they are listed simply as Fist and Brutal. While viewing the animation has been proven to be hazardous, viewing the frames of the model has been proven to have no adverse effects. The white hand is depicted as a shriveled, slightly decaying hand, with surprising attention to detail. Flesh is peeling back from the bone, and several tendons dangle realistically out of the wrist. The first attack is the hand balling into a fist, then swinging forward. However, the brutal animation is missing several frames. The hand seems to open up, then cuts out. After a few seconds, it reappears, closed again. No record has been found of these missing frames. Note, this sprite is mentioned by the girl next to the Pokemon Tower when you hit no to her question if you think ghosts exist. She says, "Ha ha ha ha. I guess not. The white hand on your shoulder, it's not real." Wait. What? That's a little freaky. But it's simply a hoax. It never actually existed. The ghost animation. The ghost animation, coded as haunting.swf, was intended to be placed in several areas throughout the tower, including in the center of a path on the second floor. However, players cannot interact with it, leaving many to believe that it was intended as a background feature. The ghost animation, as well, must be viewed in individual frames. It is comprised of 59 frames total. However, after extraction, around half of these frames have been revealed to be the standard ghost model used in Pocket Monsters. Around a quarter of the remaining frames are comprised of static to produce a fading effect. However, interspersed with these bursts of static are several frames of screaming faces, along with the images of a skeletal man in a cloak, hypothesized to be the Grim Reaper, and of several killed corpses. The meaning behind these are unknown. While under oath before the Video Games Commission Board, lead programmer Hisashi Sogabe testified as to having no knowledge as to where these images surfaced. Out of all the phenomena associated with LTS, this animation is the most speculated on in his thesis, Video Games and the Manipulation of the Human Mind, viewable in Appendix C. Dr. Jackson Turner argued that the images were intentionally placed in, due to their brief time appearing on the screen, and the graphic nature of the frames. Turner theorizes that these were meant to be subliminally influence players into becoming more frightened by the disturbing surroundings. The buried alive model. Often referred to as its code, the Berryman script, the buried alive model was to be found on the final story of the Pokemon Tower, in what has now been replaced with the Marowak ghost. According to the scripts assigned to it, the buried alive model was intended to be the boss of the tower. Once reaching the top floor, the following conversation would have taken place. You're here. I'm trapped. And I'm lonely. So very lonely. Won't you join me? After this, a battle would have been initiated. Once in battle view, the buried alive model appears to be a decaying human corpse attempting to crawl out of the ground. It has been programmed to have 2 white hands, a Gengar, and a Muck. Strangely enough, a protocol for buried alive's actions after it was defeated were not written. In the case of the player defeating him, the game would freeze. However, a specific ending was written by an unknown programmer upon losing the battle. In this ending, the buried alive model was to have stated, "Finally, fresh meat," followed by several lines of gibberish. He was to have then dragged the player character into the ground surrounding him. The scene would finish with a typical game over screen. However, in the background, an image of the buried alive character devouring the player was to have been shown. Especially strange are the protocols after this scene. The cartridge was to download this image to the small internal memory contained in the Game Boy, overwriting the title screen that normally accompanied a Game Boy turning on. Instead, whenever it was started, the player would view this image as a sound file. Static mesh.wave was played. The intended purpose for this effect, unlike many of the other factors leading towards LTS, is unknown. Author's note, everything listed here is completely true, all from official findings. Earlier, I also found other information regarding the makers of the sound files and how they committed suicide, but I can't find it anywhere. I searched around multiple Google pages, forums, and even my browser history, and that information is nowhere to be found. If anyone has any more information regarding Pokemon Green or Red versions before recall in Japan, please let me know so I may be able to tell the world. That is by far the most detailed version I have seen of it since the actual Missing Frequencies video thing. And I'm sorry, but this right here, that is freaky because that's actually something from the game. It does make things really, really creepy. Everything was fine, and then this showed up, and it's like, wait a second, she actually says that. Well, crap. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that creepypasta. If you have others that you would like me to read, or actually at least take a look at, go ahead and leave me a link. Well, send me a link in my inbox, or inform me what the creepypasta is and where I can find it in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Good night!
I can pick this up. I can throw it. With the greatest of ease. What am I, Macho Man Randy Savage? I can pick it up with the greatest of ease, for I am Macho Man.
Okay down there. Oh, this is lovely to watch. Just me